These thoughts up in my head, things I never did. I took some L's, but I'm still here. I got these thoughts up in my head. I toss and turn about some things I never said. I got regrets about some things I never did. I took some risks and took some L's, but I'm still here. And I know.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Overthinking Thoughts Pod. I'm your host, Ed, and as always, journey with me as we pursue greatness in a world full of chaos. Here we are back again with episode 70. I can't believe that we have so many episodes now. Let that be a lesson to you to just keep going, despite what you may think or what you feel or whatever. Like, put your content out there. It's important, right? Anywho, welcome back. If you've been rocking with me, of course, you know what the deal is. If you're new here, just remember that we always try to pursue greatness in a world full of chaos. We try to eliminate worry, doubt, fear, anxiety, stress, all those things. We look at what we go through on a daily basis, and I try to show you some type of motivation and encouragement to help you get through the day. So hopefully you gain something from my podcast. Ideally, I want to make sure that I do my best with what I got. So, as long as I could do that, then we'll be okay. With that being said, let's talk about some housekeeping items. If you're trying to figure out where I am, what I'm at, what I'm doing, the best place where you can go to is on YouTube. You go to YouTube, look for Overthinking Thoughts Pod. You'll see the cool logo that you saw at the beginning of the video, and make sure you subscribe there. You'll be able to see all my videos, episodes 1 through 70, with the exception of 68 or 69. One of them, the video stopped working. So, but there's audio. But make sure you check out the YouTube channel. Make sure you like and subscribe there. And then as far as the audio is concerned, I am on Spotify Podcast, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, pretty much wherever streaming podcasts are. And for socials, if you want to hit me up, you can find me over on Instagram at Overthinking Thoughts Pod. I'm also on TikTok at Overthinking Thoughts Pod. At TikTok, we're almost at 400. I'm trying to get there. I think I'm like, I don't know. We're close. So tell somebody to tell somebody else, and then like, share, do all that. So we're just trying to grow it. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's all I got as far as the housekeeping items. So I hope you had a great week. I hope that things went well for you. I also know that things can be challenging sometimes, and we'll talk about that a little bit. One of the things I want to talk about really is this concept of difficult seasons, right? Like when things get difficult and stuff isn't working in your favor, can you stay focused on the goal, or are you going to allow the distractions to take you away from what you've been called to do? So, um I kind of base this off of things that I see in life, and this lesson I kind of learned from my son. Um when he plays basketball, there's so many different things that go on. There's so many different emotions that happen. He gets frustrated if he doesn't do well, or he'll be mad if he gets a foul call or whatever. Like there's so many different things that go on. And we had a game this past weekend that didn't go in our favor for so many reasons, but that's neither here nor there. Our task was trying to keep the kids solid and help them to remember that things happen, life happens. It's not always going to go the way that you expect it to go. And they didn't have a good game the day before. This game was actually one of the better games they played, but it just didn't work out the way they wanted to. And then I started thinking about just like different stuff and looking at different situations and seeing things like on Instagram, TikTok, throughout social media. And I saw this one influencer, I can't think of her name, but she was talking about like how when you're getting ready to reach the next level, there's always going to be these distractions that come your way. And it just seems like it gets harder and harder and harder. And it's a difficult thing. And it starts to make your mind kind of sway from one side to the other, where at first you were so like motivated and you were excited. And now all of a sudden, these certain obstacles come your way and certain situations happen, and you're like, how am I supposed to deal with all this and not lose my mind? Right. um so many of us deal with real life situations, and it can be hard sometimes to try to navigate with a positive mindset. I try to preach and talk about staying positive, but at the same time I understand that life is difficult. Life can be very challenging. On your worst days, you might experience things that you never thought possible. But I guess when you have these quote unquote worst days, the first question you got to ask yourself is, how can I do my best to stay focused and maintain? If I got to grieve, if I got to cry, if I got to scream, so be it. But then, like, what's my next step after that? When difficulty arises, do you rise to the occasion or do you shrink? Do you allow the situation to control you, or do you do your best to try to control what you're going through? And I think as time goes on and the older you get, ideally being mature about these situations can be helpful, but I do understand that frustration is there. I'm not saying to ignore frustration. That's a very hard thing to do. What I am saying is, do not let it control you so much that it takes you away from finding the right solution or going the right path. Because in this world, we all know that frustration can lead to things that you can't take back. We get people that get so mad at each other, they're willing to take somebody's life because of either a disagreement or an argument, or they're just angry at life or what may have you. And those are things that you can't get back. Once that's done, that's done. And it changes everything. It changes the life you took. Obviously, it impacts the family, but it also changes your life, because essentially you've taken away from who you are. And so it's like, how can you stay focused in situations when it seems like the situation is not good? And that's where I'm trying to like get us today. I do remember going through some things where life was difficult. I had some situations where, I'm trying to figure out the right thing, or I go one way and then I go another way, and then next thing I know, I'm stuck or I'm stressed or I'm frustrated. And it really wasn't until I took the time to take a deep breath and step back to see that there are ways to overcome certain situations that you're in. Unfortunately, though, we get taught that when difficult situations arise, you got to find other ways to do things. You got to find ways to alleviate stress. You got to find ways to overcome these obstacles. You got to find ways to deal with your anger. But sometimes that can be done negative. And I think, you know if you keep going down a path where it's too negative, you end up putting yourself in a position that you can't get out of, and we don't want that. So, what do you do when difficulty arises? Here's a question: do you believe that God is good even when your situation isn't? Do you believe that you can overcome any obstacle you face, even when it seems like there's no possible way of victory? Do you have faith strong enough to know that no matter what weapon is formed, that it won't prosper? Do you have that inside of you? And if you don't, what is holding you back from achieving that? Ask yourself, at the end of all this, when I get through to the other side, am I going to be a better person? And I know that once I conquer it, I will then have the blueprint to be able to face anything that comes my way. But you got to be able to go through it and handle it the right way. I don't know what you're facing in life. You might have lost a loved one. You might have lost a job. You might have lost some money. You might have lost friends. You might be in an isolation period. You might be feeling alone, upset, angry, weary, all these different emotions. But I'm also here to tell you that these things don't last. Think about storms, right? It storms hard, it's heavy, it's raining, and you just feel like there's no way out. You're trying to dodge raindrops, you're soaking wet. But eventually, after every storm, the sun comes out. So eventually, after every storm that you face, the sun will come out and it will dry up everything that you've been facing. It will also illuminate the path that you need to continue to walk on in order to become the successful person that you're supposed to be. It also provides warmth, because in those dark moments, you feel lonely and cold and upset, but that warmth is coming. You just have to be able to weather the storm. You have to be able to roll with whatever comes your way. And you can't let these things dictate or, you know, manipulate you into going down a path you don't want to go down. You know people, and I know people that have faced adversity, and some have risen to the occasion and have become great human beings, and others who allowed the situations to kind of manipulate who they are, and they turned into things that they didn't want to become. And I understand that situations, or certain situations, are rough, but at the end of the day, you still have to keep focused. Difficulty is a part of life. Not everything is going to work out the way you want it to. Not every situation is going to be a great situation, but can you stay in a positive mindset even if the outcome is negative? That's a serious question you got to ask yourself. And I'll admit that I don't always do that, because I have my frustrations too. I have my moments where I let emotions get the best of me, and I have to step back and allow myself to not, to not be overcome by a temporary situation. I have I guess I have a mindset of, well, what I've worked on is just remembering that every situation I face, I have to pull something out of that in order to better myself as a human being. There's some lesson in there that I have to learn that's going to, it may not benefit my situation, but it might help me protect my kids, or protect, somebody I'm mentoring, or protect someone who I see going down the same path, and I say, hey, you don't have to go this route. This is what happened to me. Here's what you should do, so everything has, there's always something that you're going to learn from it. But you also got to remember that, my faith in God lets me know that regardless of the situation I'm in, all things work together for the greater good, even when that situation is not cool. And I know that that takes a toll on a lot of people. That's why you have to be very careful of who you talk to and whose path you cross, because you don't know the fights that these people are fighting. You don't know the pain that they may be harboring inside, and on the outside they're smiling, and they're letting you know that everything is okay, and they're giving you motivation, and then turns out that they're the ones that need it the most, right? So you never know what a person is dealing with on the inside, which is why it's so important to be respectful and kind to every person that you meet, even if there's a backlash. I know I sound very like, you gotta be great, stay positive and all that, but I also don't want you to go down a path to where you regret saying or doing something that changes the trajectory of your life. So yeah, it's hard to turn the other cheek sometimes, but we got to do it in order to show those people that there is a way out, there's a better way of doing things, and that somebody actually cares about what they're going through. Regardless of if it's just a hey, how you doing, or a quick smile, or whatever, like sometimes that's more than enough. I remember the situation. I was working at a school one time, and I happened to bump into this parent who was waiting for their kid to finish with a tour or something like that. And we get to talking about life and stuff. And I remember I said something like, just because the situation is bad now, it doesn't mean it always will be. Like, God always has a plan for us. And this woman just hugged me. And I like had no clue. She's like, you have no idea like how much I need to hear that. You have no idea what I've been dealing with or what I've been going through. It's been tough, and she's listening to all this stuff, and I was just like, whoa. And that was just one of those things where you step back and you realize, man, people ain't always gonna tell you everything that's on their heart, but every person needs some type of compassion, some type of love, some type of friendship, some type of sign that lets them know that not everything is dark and gray, not everything is gloomy, and not everybody is evil. Contrary to popular belief, there are good people in the world, and I hope that you just so happen to be one of those people. And you got to exercise that daily. You have to show that daily in how you move. But you're probably asking yourself, well, how am I supposed to move when the situations are crazy, when the situations are difficult, when I'm trying to, put money together and I'm living check to check and I don't always know where the resources are coming from? That's a hard spot to be in. It is rock bottom, I know. I don't know your situation and I don't know everything that you're facing, but what I do know is that you've been able to defeat every bad day that you ever had because you're still standing. I know that you've been able to overcome every situation because you're still finding ways to move forward. I know that maybe not everything worked in your favor, but you are blessed and highly favored because a situation could have went left, but you still standing and walking on the right path. So where you see defeat, I see victory. Where you see failure, I see success. Where you see giving up, I see somebody who's resilient. I'm able to step back and see those things. And I tell you that because you are probably looking at yourself and thinking you're a failure when the reality is that you're still standing, you're still breathing, you still have a purpose, you still have a vision, you still have a goal, and you're still going toward that goal. So why would you give up on that? And why would you quit on that? And why would you let the circumstances hold you down when you've been able to overcome every single one that you faced? But have you taken the time to really recognize that? Do we take the time to recognize our victories, or do we always wallow in the defeats? Like, yeah, sometimes stuff is difficult, and I understand you got to go through your emotions and let those things happen, but at some point you got to pick yourself back up. I tell my son that I'm like, at some point, man, like I get that you frustrated, but don't come to me with excuses. Like, come to me with a solution, and come to me and figure out, like, this happened, but now I want to go on this path, or this happened and now I want to move, and I want to make this change happen because I don't want to continue on the same path. Like, give me something that allows me to work with you and say, okay, if this is what you want to do, let's move forward and let's see what this path takes. And I think those that stay resilient and don't give up will find that they will reap benefits that they never thought possible. But those who allow the situation to bury themselves will never grow, because they stunted their growth off of a temporary feeling of failure or resentment. And it's like, you can't keep stunting your growth in an arena where you're supposed to grow. You can't keep closing the door in an arena where you have the key to open it. You can't keep telling yourself no when you've already been told yes. Sometimes you got to get out of your own way, because you're the one that's making it difficult for your own self. So move, and move with purpose. Going back to basketball, one of the things as a coach that is frustrating is when we're on offense and you tell guys, hey, we need to move around, and guys are just running without a purpose. They're just moving just to move. They don't necessarily know why they're moving. They don't know where they're going. They don't really know what they should be doing. And you're like, we our purpose on offense is to score the ball, and we're just moving just to move. Nobody's looking for the ball. Nobody's trying to help anybody else. That's a frustrating thing. When we break the play down and say, this is why we're moving this way, or this is why we need to move that way, it gives a better sense of judgment as to how you move and where you move and when to move. In the same breath, in our lives, we have to do the same thing. If we're just wandering to be wandering, well, whatever, I just hope whatever happens, happens. You're just moving, but you're not putting in any work. That's not going to help you. You got to move with purpose, and it's got to be methodical. You have to know where you're headed. You have to know why you're moving. You have to know the purpose of your moving, the purpose of your movement, the purpose of your vision, the purpose of your goals. You have to know these things. Otherwise, you're just going to be aimlessly walking around. And there's a lot of people that are doing that, but are lying to themselves and saying, I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. Some people don't even have the desire to figure it out, and others are just wandering around hoping that somebody just lends a hand and says, hey, let me get you. But sometimes you're going to have to put forth the effort to show that this is, you know, where you're headed. And then maybe that help will come. And if it doesn't, reevaluate what your purpose is and why you're moving. But don't just be out there to be out there. Easier said than done sometimes. Definitely a challenging thing, but this is life. You know, this is who we are as people. We're trying to develop. We're trying to get better. We're trying to move. We're trying to grow. We're trying to break generational curses, and sometimes that also has a chokehold on us, because we've always seen how things were. We've always seen how it's been done, or we've always been stuck in a certain way. And you're being tasked to be the person to overcome all that. And you're feeling pressure, and you're feeling overwhelmed, and you're feeling the weight of everybody counting on you. Not to mention, you're looking at your mistakes. You're looking at things that you've tried and failed at. And you're wondering why you're put in this position to be the one to overcome this. Well, maybe it's destined for you. Maybe you're the one called. And if you're the one called, you got to answer that call, because you just might be the link, the missing piece that creates success for everybody around you, because you decided to go against the grain and do something that nobody was used to. Yeah, it's different because it's never happened before, but look at all of the great things that have happened in life. Those things didn't happen before until somebody decided they were going to chase after it. It's no different from what you're trying to do right now. And somebody's being challenged right now, and you're wanting to throw in the towel and you're wanting to give up. And I'm telling you, you cannot allow difficulties to distract you from the path that you're supposed to follow. You can't allow that to happen. You can't let these distractions dictate who you are or dictate where you go. You know where you're headed. And if you need guidance, that's what you pray for. You pray for vision. You pray for guidance. You pray for wisdom. You pray for knowledge. And you pray that your steps are being ordered because it'll show you. If you start going the wrong way, you'll know. And you'll go, oh, nah, that ain't right. That don't feel right. I feel it in my spirit. My discernment is telling me this ain't where I need to go. I need to go over here. And then you go and you do your best to stay focused on that path. And that's the goal that I'm trying to teach you all that, like, in difficult situations, we have to learn how to rise above. In challenging situations, we have to be able to face those things in order to find out that we are more than conquerors. We're warriors. We can be strong and courageous through these things. And we can find a way out of situations that other people are looking at and going, how are you going to make it? Sometimes you just got to go through it. Sometimes there's ways to go around it. But in all ways, we have to face it with our heads high. And we say, okay, if this is what's challenging me, how is it going to benefit me? How is it going to help me? How am I going to be able to help others? And you might feel like you're being stretched, but that's how you grow, right? And we want growth. We want that to be a part of our lives because then we can help others grow. You know, it's not a selfish thing. It's always about giving back to those that see what journey you're on. So I hope that, as life goes on, the more you start facing these things, the more you stand strong and you realize, like, all right, yeah, difficult situations come, difficult things happen, but it doesn't always mean that you're going to fail or stay rock bottom because it's never meant for us to stay rock bottom. Some of us have to hit rock bottom to understand what that feels like, and then we got to rebuild to grow. Some of us can see it and know, I never want to go that way. I got to stay motivated and keep going. And some of us are so determined not to fail that we never want to look at it. But everybody's path is different. Everybody walks a certain way. Everybody goes a certain way, and that's where we differ as far as the journeys that we're on, but the same in the fact that we are all trying to conquer something in order to better ourselves and better those around us. But don't let those difficulties stop you. And ultimately, going back to another point, if you are the person that's difficult, if you're the person that's putting yourself in these positions, you need to start asking yourself, why do I keep trying to halt myself? Some of us halt ourselves because there's a fear. There's a fear of failure. There's a fear of being rejected. There's a fear of what happens when I reach this level. How are people going to view me? How are people going to see me? You can't control that. No matter how great you are, no matter how much good you do, there's going to be people that see that and they're not going to like it. That's just the way life is. That doesn't mean you stop. That doesn't mean you halt all your progress because certain people feel that way. No, your purpose is your purpose. It's your plan. It's your path. It's your destiny. So you need to fulfill that. They'll be fine. They'll figure out what's meant for them. But as for you, if you know you got to keep going, you keep going. But also don't be the person that gets in your own way and starts your own growth because you're afraid of what you can become or what you can grow into, or worse, you just don't believe in who you are as a person. Like the audacity of you to think that you can't do great things. Who told you that? And if it were you, why? If it was you, why did you talk negative to yourself in the first place? If you started believing all the negative words that you gave yourself, imagine how much stronger you would be if you spoke positive to yourself. Is that crazy to believe? Is that a weird thing to do? I don't know. But if you talk negative to yourself, why can't you talk positive to yourself? Why can't you show love to yourself? Why can't you give yourself inspiration? Why can't you be your biggest motivation? Why can't you love you? I don't know. These are just things I think about as I podcast and wander, but I just don't want us to drown in this thing we call life. I know it's a new year, things are changing, so much is going on in the world, so much chaos, so much negativity and things like that. There might be things right in front of you that you're trying to figure out, how do I overcome this or how do I control it, and you can't seem to quite put your finger on exactly what it is that you're supposed to be doing, but you know that you're gonna have to go through some things to get there. Man, do your best to embrace it. Um, because people are watching. People are out there believing in you. People are wanting to see you be the best that you can be. So do that in the best way possible. Seriously. Because somebody's watching. Somebody is definitely watching, and somebody is definitely um rooting for you. They might not tell you up front. I know I say that a lot, but I really need to get that message across to you. So, as life goes on, as things move, yes, there are difficulties that happen. Some would even call them tests. But you won't know if you pass a test if you never take it. And you can't be afraid to go through it. Um, so if I had any words of encouragement or motivation, number one, keep your head high. You need to keep your head high in order to see where you're headed. Number two, just keep going. Don't let obstacles get in the way. Don't let distractions pull you from one side to the other. You keep going and try to stay as focused as possible. I think the biggest thing, number three, do not give up on yourself. Your name carries weight. Your I used to tell people this all the time. Like when I was coaching, I said, yeah, you might play ball for 4 years in high school and try to live off that for the rest of your life, but you can't. Like, ideally, what is the legacy that you're trying to leave behind? Outside of this, like, this is just one part of your life, but what is the legacy you're trying to leave? So, what is the legacy you're trying to leave? What is the lasting impact that you want to leave on this earth? Those are questions that you got to ask. And I hope that it's more than just, oh, well, I just want to do this or that. Like, I hope there's a stronger purpose behind that. I do. But you won't know that until you dig deep within yourself and try to figure out what that is. So, yeah, difficulty, unfortunately, is something that we'll face. But learning how to overcome those things and rise to the occasion, to rise above those things, that happens too. And those are the stories we want to hear. So that way, if we're facing situations, but you made it through, you giving us a blueprint on how you made it. We don't want to give up. We don't want you to give up. I don't want you to give up. I don't want you to belittle yourself or talk down to yourself. I want you to give yourself love and give yourself strength and tell yourself that you know that you're going to make it through. And I know not every day is going to be the best day, but every day is a day to experience. And if you're able to live it and you wake up in the morning and you're able to go back home and fall asleep in your bed that night and then wake up the next day, that's a blessing. That's a victory. That's something that you should never take for granted. So do your best to stay positive, okay? And I guess my task for you this week is when difficulty arrive, like yeah, blah 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 blah. Let's rewind that. My task for you this week is that when difficulties start to arise, you learn how to rise to the occasion to overcome it, to go through it and to experience it so that you can become the best person and the best version of you that you can be. That you're not dodging or trying to cut corners or create shortcuts, but that you're actually trying to grow to be the best person that you can be. And yes, it is scary. Yes, it is difficult. Yes, there are times where you're going to question it and you might be wondering, am I supposed to do this? Can I do this? Can I do that? But you were built strong. You are strong and courageous. It tells you so in the word. Have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous? So be strong and courageous through your difficult moments so you can overcome, rise above, and then be the blueprint of success for others who are going to need to see the path that they need to walk so that they too can become successful. And then they could pass that on to the people in their lives that need it. And the chain continues. So don't give up on yourself. Don't talk down to yourself. And find deep down inside of you the belief of knowing that you can make it through any situation. And if you don't believe that, I just need to tell you up front, like I always do, and I will continue to do this. I believe in you. Now, please go believe in yourself. All right. I love you. Say it back. Well, I'm not going to know if you did or not, but you know what I mean. Anyway, with all that being said, I do believe in you. Please go believe in yourself. All right. It's the Overthinking Thoughts Pod. I'm Ed. We out.
These thoughts up in my head. Things I never did. I took some L's, but I'm still here. Got these thoughts up in my head. I toss and turn about some things I never said. I got regrets about some things I never did. I took some risks and took some L's, but I'm still here. And I know.